In this video, I'm going to be taking a look at Warp 2.0, the Agentic development environment. First up, just to go through some aspects of the platform. What you can do with it is you can write out with natural language whatever you want to do, and it will be able to traverse between executing the relevant terminal commands as well as actually writing out the relevant pieces of code. This could be a net new project, but most importantly, you could also use this within pre-existing code bases that you have, and it will be able to do all of the retrieval and find all of the relevant context to actually build out whatever you're working on. Now, in terms of some of the features, you will be able to directly integrate MCP servers. They do also have something called Warp Drive, and you will be able to have rules that are going to be relevant to the particular projects or the context that you want to leverage. Another really neat feature of the platform is you're going to be able to run multiple agents in parallel, and you're going to be able to have a notification pane of all of the different statuses of those different agents. You can almost think of this as your own little workforce, and you have your command station, which is Warp, where you can spin off all of these AI agents to do all of those different tasks for you. And this is something that I think the platform really got right, is they're setting themselves up for where coding is going to be over the coming months and years, as opposed to where coding has been. There's a lot of really fresh takes in terms of things that I haven't quite seen in other platforms before. Warp does rank #1 on Terminal Bench, which is an agentic coding benchmark, and they also rank within the top 5 on SWE-bench with a 71%. Now, in terms of getting started, you will be able to get started on Mac, Linux, or Windows. They have cross coverage across the board here. Without further ado, let's dive into the tool and I'll show you what it can do. Okay, so now what I've done is I've spun up a project that I'm working on, and I also have it within the directory within Warp here. I can see all of the relevant Git information within here. Right off the bat, just to show you how this works, let's say I want to change the color of this expand button. What I can do within here is I can leverage the voice input, and I'm going to say, I want to change out all the expand buttons on both the tile for currently tracked websites as well as change tracking log. I want specifically the background of those buttons to be black as well as the icon color to be white. Now I'll go ahead and I'll send in that request. We'll begin to see the agent make decisions on what it needs to do to actually accomplish that task. It's searching our code base for that expand button. I can see that it did find the 2 expand buttons that I was looking for. Within here, it highlighted the current structure of how the buttons are laid out. And once it gets to a file where it is touching your code base, it will show you exactly what it's doing. Within here, what we'll see is the diff of the change that it wants to make. Now within this panel, I have a few different options. So I can Command R, or I can Command E to actually edit what's within here. And just to show you this, if I make this a little bit bigger just for a moment, and I Command E within here, I can go through and leverage this just like I would a code editor. While it can feel like you're within a terminal environment, you definitely aren't. This is a very rich environment. I can highlight things, I can delete things, I can undo things and replace things. And the thing with this is you don't need any knowledge in terms of what you might typically have to leverage within a terminal, like knowing all the different Vim commands if you just want to go within a file and what have you. This just feels like a very augmented sort of experience within here. Within here, I can go through and I can edit it like you saw me doing, or additionally, I can just go through next and I can see all of the different changes that it made. What I'm going to do here is I'm just going to go ahead and apply those changes, and I'm going to put this back on the left-hand side here. And now I can see our expand button here. Now again, I'm going to leverage the voice input, and I'm going to say, I don't quite like how the box shadow looks on the expand button. I want to leverage the box shadow similar to this. I'm just going to copy in the classes from the pre-existing buttons that I have on the page here. Now within here, it was able to update those buttons with exactly what I had asked for. Now, one quick aside is you can also @mention different code blocks, files, or folders. What you can do with this is, say for instance, if you want to reference one of the page components, you can go ahead and reference it just like that. Or if you want to reference other pieces of context that you have directly within your repository. Now that we have that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up a few different windows. Now, the one quick aside that I do like with this is as soon as you open up new tabs, it is going to default you to the previous project that you are within. So it's not the root of your system. You won't have to go and find your directory again or anything like that. It is going to default to where you're coming from. And the really cool thing with this is if I go within agent mode, let's say on all of these, I can have parallel requests for whatever I want to ask for. So within this, what I can do is I can say something like, I want to have this changed only button reflect to be orange with the appropriate box shadow. I'll go ahead and I'll kick off that task. And once I have that, I'm going to go to another tab and I'm going to say, I want to add an item to the nav that reads docs. And I also want to have a basic documentation page based on the context of the repo. I'll go ahead and I'll kick that off. And then finally, I'm going to kick off one more. And within here, I'm going to say I want to have a border on each of the pills on the home page. Within here, what you'll notice is in the top right-hand corner, within here, this is going to be all of the different agents as well as their current status. Now, how this works is as soon as your agent needs your attention or it's completed its task, it will let you know in the top right-hand corner. You can just be almost like the supervisor of all of the different tasks that you've asked them to complete. Within here, I can see that it's made this documentation page. I'll go ahead and I'll accept that. I can see that it's made some suggested edits to actually add in a border for those different pills that I have on the homepage here. I can just go through and review all of this. And that's the nice thing with this. I can also Command R if I want to refine this. And this is just refining it with natural language. So you have the option to edit the actual code with Command E or Command R to actually iterate on it. So I'm going to say, I want the border to be black and not a dark gray. Now I'll go ahead and I'll apply this change here. Now I can see I have all of these different borders around all of those different pills within the UI there. And the thing that I find with this is it really is conducive to actually just trying a lot of different things. It's like there isn't the tax of having to spend the time and mocking something up or going and adding in all of those individual classes. I can just ask this with natural language. And in terms of how people like to leverage AI, there's a ton of different approaches. But the thing with Warp that is really nice is it definitely does encourage you to actually review the changes that you're putting within your code base. Now, the other thing that I do want to flag with this that is nice is I think increasingly so, I think everyone would probably agree that we're more going in a direction where we're going to be writing more and more of our code with natural language. And with that, the form factor, I think, is definitely in question right now. But with Warp, I think it's definitely directionally correct with where we're going. The thing with Warp that is really quite interesting that I've found is just how we have the natural language pane as well as at the relevant times, the bits of code to review that we're putting within our code base, and it just interweaves between what the agent is doing, what the actual code is that the agent generated, and it will go through that loop. Whereas this is completely different than an IDE where we have files on one side, we might have a terminal on the bottom, we might have a chat panel on the other side, we might have our code in the center. Whereas this, it just feels like a fluid experience. We have all of those different aspects still at our reach within this, but it is within this flowing state where we can just iterate through with natural language. We can go in and see the relevant pieces of code when necessary. We can make those edits, whether it's with code or again with natural language. And all the relevant pieces just come up naturally within the interface instead of having to hop between all of the different visual components that you might have on the screen within something like an IDE. And then here is the documentation page that it made. This is really quite impressive. There are a handful of things that I probably would swap out. Like, I'm not a big fan of these multicolored icons that you see. I think to me, that's generally a flag that it does look like an LLM generated application. But in terms of the overall styles, without me actually specifying that, it was able to have the context and understanding to actually reference the relevant styling that I have within my application. Additionally, within here, I do have the getting started. I can set up my API key, or alternatively, I can go ahead and I can start monitoring different websites where it will bring us back to the original page there. From here, if I just scroll down, I can see the configuration. I also see the webhook integration that I have set up. I have these relevant code blocks that are all set up. I also have the API documentation that I can go and I can check out. It's included troubleshooting within here. And the nice thing with this is I was able to see every little portion that it was going through. I could go and I could edit and I can refine things. And what I find with this, as opposed to some of the other agentic tools that are out there like Claude Code or Gemini CLI, is this, it actually gives you a nice UX to see what it's doing. And I can hop in here. I can refine with natural language, or I can edit this. I've been using this for a number of weeks, and it is definitely a really great tool. One aside of something that I did leverage Warp for that was really great actually was I was setting up a new Linux machine, and I'm not as familiar with Linux, and I had to set up NVIDIA drivers and do all this stuff within an operating system that I'm not usually used to using, at least for a home machine. And it was able to come up with all of the relevant commands without me really having to look up anything. That was another use case where you could definitely use this for DevOps or any type of work, even if it's outside of actually writing scripts or web applications or software, what have you. Even if you just want to configure a new computer, this can be something that is quite helpful. But otherwise, that's pretty much it. I just wanted to show you a quick one on Warp as well as what it's capable of. I definitely encourage you to try this out. There's a ton of different features that are built within this. I encourage you to actually pull down a project that you're already working on or spin up a new project completely from scratch and give this a shot. It is definitely a very powerful powerful, as well as different type of option for actually writing out applications than we're used to seeing that are out there, especially within the AI space. But otherwise, that's pretty much it for this video. If you found this video useful, please comment, share, and subscribe. Otherwise, until the next one.